Thank you, Tyler. Good morning. I'm starting to rethink this no shave November that I'm doing. Got a brother looking pretty rough up here. I'm not sure who convinced me to do that, but anyway, we're on one side of it. Well, it's good to see y'all this morning. If you're visiting with us, welcome. We're thankful that you've chosen to be here with us, and we hope that you are encouraged and lifted up during this worship time. As we get started today, we have successfully made it through our Keeping Our Witness series. And so we're done with that. Cameron preached the last sermon on that series last Sunday. And so today we're going to start a new series. We're doing the requested sermons again. So earlier this year, I think it was around the summertime, we put out a request from you all, what you wanted to hear preached on. And so today we are going to be preaching on hope. And the request was made about the fact that everyone needs hope. And it seems like in our world, just with all of the evil and wickedness and the darkness going on, we just need to be reminded of hope and the need for hope. And so we're going to do that today. And one other thing before we get started, I think I made a mistake with my slides, so they're a little bit big. I hope that really doesn't distract you too much. But that was my fault, not anybody else's. But I hope it doesn't take away anything from our lesson today. With that, I want to share a story with you all as we get started here. There was a woman one day on her way to work, and she was driving on her way to work when suddenly her car stalled right in the middle of traffic. And so the woman, she gets out of her car, and she opens up the front of her hood, and she's looking to try to figure out what's wrong with her car. And the whole time as she's looking under the hood, the car behind her is just laying into his horn. Beep, 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 beep. It's just completely rude and just relentless. And so finally, the woman, she's had enough. And so she walks back to this man's car, and she gently says to him, she says, "Sir, I don't know what's wrong with my car, but if you want to go take a look under the hood, I'll be glad to stay here and honk for you." You know, we are not a patient people, right? We are not patient at all. We tend to be a horn honking, microwave heating, FedEx mailing, fast food eating, 5G internet searching, express lane shopping, Amazon Prime shipping people, right? We do not like to wait. We are always in a hurry. People don't like to wait in line. We don't like to wait at the store, at the doctor's office, or at the post office, right? We do not like waiting. Robert Levine, in his book titled A Geography of Time, suggests the creation of a new unit of time called the hunkosecond. The hunkosecond is the time between when the light changes and the person behind you beeps his horn. He says it's the shortest measurement of time known to science. And I think there's some accuracy behind that. You know, if there's one thing that our modern world hates, it's waiting. In fact, to get rich today, if you want to get rich, all you need to do is simply invent something that reduces wait times. And so businesses and companies, they vie for ever quicker delivery systems. Businesses and individuals try to squeeze every last drop of usefulness out of every last second. We carry around tiny computers called smartphones around everywhere we go to occupy us for each moment that we have to wait. Our society conditions people to expect instant results. When something like traffic interferes with our plans or our schedules, we grow incredibly frustrated. You want a surefire way to make someone frustrated or upset? Make them wait. And to give you an example, have you ever been at a light and you're about to turn left and there was a car in front of you? And when the car was in front of you, the light was red, but then it changes to green. But the car in front of you, they were texting or they weren't paying attention. They were doing whatever on their phone or whatever. And then they realized that the light had changed until it turned yellow. And so they speed up, they make it through the light. By the time you get to the light, it turns red, right? Has that ever happened to you? You talk about hot. That might be like the fastest way to make my blood boil, right? Why? Because they made us wait. We don't like waiting. And what do you do in response to that? we're a church here today. If you know, have you ever driven up next to somebody, right? They cut you off, or they made you miss a light, right? And you just give them that look, right? You give them the look because they messed up. And if you're the person who messed up, what do? You just, you can feel them looking at you, right? Am I lying? Oh, man, we are not good at waiting. And the truth is, I'm not very good at waiting either. You know, I want what I want, and I want it now. But God is still working on me. For every bud of impatience that grows within me, God is constantly pruning away. And praise be to God that his patience for me is not what my patience is for others. God is still working on me. But what if I told you that waiting can be a godly thing? What if I told you that waiting can help you become a better man, a better husband, a better father, brother, mother, wife, sister, daughter, child, or son? What if there's something redemptive about waiting? What if we could bring good out of it? What if we accepted the basic truth that everybody on the entire earth is waiting for something? What if we focus less on reducing wait times and more on what we're waiting for? You see, oftentimes when we wait, our concern is more with wasting time and not on what we're waiting for. But in the Bible, waiting has less to do with wasting time and what they were waiting for. So for instance, Noah and the ark. When the flood waters were receding, Noah waited for weeks to get off the boat. Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah had to wait 25 years for the promise of God. God told the Israelites that they would be a free people. They would escape the bondage of slavery in Egypt. They had to wait 400 years. God told Moses that he would lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. And he had to wait 40 years in the wilderness. Simeon had to wait a lifetime to see the Messiah. Zechariah and Elizabeth had to wait until they were old and gray before they could have a child. The apostles, when they asked Jesus, they said, "Lord, will you at this time restore the kingdom?" Or in other words, can we stop waiting? And Jesus says, I want you to stay in Jerusalem. He said, don't leave Jerusalem, but I want you to wait for the promise, the gift that my Father promised. In the Bible, people waited. They waited in the Bible, but their waiting had less to do with wasting time and more to do with what they were waiting for. And God was working on them throughout that whole time. They weren't just wasting away. It's like Paul, who said this. He said, suffering produces perseverance, or you could add, waiting produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. God is working on us through that time that we are waiting. But their focus was less on wasting time and more on what they were waiting for. So in our microwave society, what if we focus less on wasting time and more on what we are waiting for? Because actually, in the Bible, waiting has more to do with hope than anything else. You see, the Hebrew word for hope is tikva. Everybody say tikva. Okay, congratulations. You are now Hebrew scholars. Tikva comes from the root word kavah. Everybody say kavah. Kavah means to wait. So in the Bible, waiting is about hope. It's about expectation. It's about anticipation. It's not about wasting time, but it's about what you're waiting for. And each of these examples that I just mentioned, they weren't wasting time. They were expecting something good. They were anticipating God to move or to work in a powerful way. So again, I ask, what if we focus less on wasting time and more on what we are hoping for? Because today, when we use the word hope, it usually means nothing more than wishful thinking. You might hear somebody say, oh, I hope I get an A on my test. I hope my team wins. I hope it doesn't rain today. But in each of those examples, they're nothing more than a wish for something good to happen or just vain optimism. But that's not the hope that we're talking about today. We're talking about tikva. And tikva is a confident expectation or anticipation of some good or positive outcome, regardless of the circumstances. It's not wishful thinking. Tikva is an expectation or a belief in the fulfillment of God's promises. Biblical hope is hope in God that he will fulfill his promises in the future. Hope is a positive expectation of some future good that is not yet present and where there is some uncertainty. Tikva is the hope of the exiles who lived in captivity in Jeremiah 29:11. That says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you tikva and a future." Tikva is what the psalmist prayed for in the time of distress when he said, "My soul finds rest in God. My tikva comes from him." Or Psalm 39 that says, "And now, O Lord, what else can I kavah for? You are my tikva." Again, Paul says that while we are waiting for God to set everything right, we suffer or we wait. But suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. And hope does not disappoint. God is producing all these qualities in us while we wait. He did for Noah. He did for Abraham and Sarah. He did for the Israelites, for the apostles. Waiting is a godly thing. Waiting is not just something we do until we get what we want. It's a part of the process of becoming who God wants us to be and what he wants us to be. And hope is something that we all need. I don't care what age you are. It's something that every single one of us needs. You know, it's been said that a person can live 3 minutes without air. They can live 3 days without water and 3 weeks without food. But you can't live a second without hope. And I think that's true. Hope is vital for life. To live or to try to live without hope is ultimately fatal. It's ultimately a death sentence to try to live without hope. In fact, I found this interesting that the medical and the scientific community affirmed this also. There was a famous cardiologist who once said this. He said, "Hope is the medicine I use more than any other. Hope can cure nearly everything. If you lead a person to believe that there is no hope, you drive another nail in his coffin. Hope is what keeps the human heart alive when all else has failed. Hope in a positive future can propel the weakest soul through any trial. When a person loses his confident expectation of a positive tomorrow, the inner drive to live and move forward is extinguished." And further, things like depression, despair, and suicide have many causes, but at its core is a loss of hope. I found that pretty fascinating to hear that from a medical professional to say that. In fact, you might have heard this story before. It was originally published in the 1950s by Psychology Today when researchers were doing an experiment on the power of hope. And they were conducting to see the effect that hope has on undergoing hardship in a certain environment. And so what they did was that they had 2 sets of rats, of lab rats. And the first set of lab rats, they placed both of the rats in tubs of water. The first set they placed in the water and they left them there, and within an hour, all the rats had drowned. But the second set of rats in the other tub, they would periodically come back and pick the rats up out of the water and place them back in the water. And what happened next was astonishing. The second rats, they discovered, had swam for over 24 hours. And why is that? Well, it wasn't because that the rats were given rest. It wasn't because that their controlled environment was any different than the first set of rats in the first tub of water. What made them swim for 26 hours? It was because suddenly they had hope. Researchers found out that those animals somehow hoped that if they could swim, if they could just stay afloat just a little bit longer, if they could paddle and stroke just a little longer, then they would have life. and they would not drown like the first set of rats did. If hope holds such an amazing power for animals like rats, how much more for us as humans, as God's children? We all need hope. We all need hope to push forward, to move through the dark days of life, the difficult days, the stresses that we deal with, especially through difficult times. And I don't know about you, but I need this tikva in my life. And I believe that Memphis needs this tikva. I believe that Whitehaven needs this tikva, because I'm waiting for God to create in me what he wants me to be. And I'm waiting for him to create in our world what he wants our world to be. I keep waiting. I keep waiting for crime to go down. I keep waiting for the infighting to cease. I keep waiting for the day that I can finally turn on the news and see some good news. I keep waiting for the prices of eggs and groceries to go down. I keep waiting for black-on-black crime to come to an end. I keep waiting for hospitals to empty out. I keep waiting for the day that I can see all children grow up in a household that has both a mother and a father. I keep waiting for these wars to end. I keep waiting for the prices of gas to come down. I keep waiting for abortion clinics to be shut down. I keep waiting for Jesus. I keep waiting for his promises that we're told. He said in Luke 11, Lord, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I keep waiting for, at the name of Jesus, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. I'm waiting. And every time you turn on the news or open up your social media or go to the grocery store, doesn't it seem like the world is upside down? You know, Satan is hard at work, weaving a web of suffering, corruption, despair throughout our cities, our homes, our communities. So how do we find hope in a world like that today? How do we hold on to hope despite all the evil in the world going on? A few weeks ago, the elders and the ministry leaders met with Steve Clower. And we had this meeting to discuss the future of our church. We wanted to discuss where we are now and where we want to be moving forward. And there were a lot of really good things that came out of this meeting. And one of the things that was emphasized is that we want to be a church that focuses upward, inward, and outward. That is, we want to be a church that focuses on God. We want to be a Bible-believing, scripture-reading church. You know, we want to put everything that we have, everything that we do in Christ Jesus. We also want to be a church that focuses inwardly, that we take care of the body that meets here at Holmes Road, that we continue to encourage and edify and love and share and give with one another. But we also want to be evangelistic. We want to take what we have here within these four walls and share it out there. We want to proclaim the gospel of Christ to others. And so right now, we acknowledge that we're doing a pretty good job of upward and the inward. We're doing a good job here. But I think we can do some work with the outward part, where we can do a better job proclaiming Christ and doing outreach and doing evangelism to our neighbors right here in Whitehaven. And the question was asked to Steve, how do we do this? You know, how do we become a church that is evangelistic, that focuses on outreach? And I want to share with you one of the things that he said that it was very powerful to me that he said. He said, you need to develop a burden for the people you want to reach, because ministry flows out of what burdens you. Just want to let that breathe for a minute. You need to develop a burden for the people you want to reach, because ministry flows out of what burdens you. So last Wednesday, a small group of us went up the street here to Oakshire Elementary School, you know, one of the school that we sponsor. We went there to listen and to develop a burden for this school and this community. And we sat down with Ms. Harris and Ms. Streeter. One of them was the vice principal. And we asked them, just, what is your greatest need? You know, how can we be of help and of service? What is your greatest need? And this is what they said. They told us that our greatest need right now is literacy. We have kids right now who are in first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade that cannot read. And because they cannot read, they're being held back. They're being kept back in their grades. They can't move forward. In addition to that, they also can't pass the TCAP test as well, which impacts other things like attendance and funding for the school. You don't get funding if you don't, these things don't happen and stuff. And because these kids can't read, they're having other issues as well, like behavioral issues. It turns out when you can't really communicate well, when you can't articulate your thoughts or express yourself, express your feelings, sometimes kids lash out. And what's even worse, not only can the kids cannot read, but the parents can't read either. And so the kids can't read and they have homework, they go home, and they can't do their homework because they don't know how to read, and their parents don't know how to read either. You need to develop a burden for the people that you want to reach. Here's why I believe that matters. I find this really disturbing. Statistics show that 2 out of 3 students who cannot read proficiently by the end of the 4th grade will end up in jail or on welfare. 70% of all incarcerated adults cannot read at a 4th grade level. I was talking to Reggie earlier, and he was just sharing with me that Shelby County has one of the highest illiteracy rates in the state of Tennessee. This is a problem. There's a direct correlation between literacy and civility. You're much less likelier to make it if you cannot read. You're already on the wrong track. It doesn't help. It turns out it makes it a lot harder to find a good paying job if you cannot read. It makes it a lot harder to read your lease if you cannot read. It makes it a lot harder to be informed about decisions if you cannot read. So where's the hope in that? Where's the hope for these children, the parents, in a world where high gas prices, high crime, high inflation, low morality, and low literacy? Where's the hope in that? I think we all can agree that we need hope. If hope is about expecting a positive outcome for the future, where is the hope for these children? Doesn't that seem like a problem to you? So how do we find hope in the world today? Well, I think we do what Christians have always done when there was a need for hope. We look to God through Scripture. You look forward by looking backwards. You look back at God's past faithfulness and how he's worked and moved in the world before, and you glean hope from that God can reproduce that for us today. And so as we close, I want to share a powerful story about hope with you all here today, and I hope that this will encourage you as we prepare to close. This is from Joshua chapter 2. You'll be familiar with this story. This is a story of Rahab. Rahab lived in a dark time. She lived a pretty immoral life. She came to the realization one day when 2 spies entered her home, and she had heard about this God. She talked about, I heard what God did in Egypt. I heard what he did with those 2 Amorite kings. And I know that you serve a powerful God. And the fact that you're here, that for Rahab, the writing was already on the wall. She knew what was going to happen. If she stayed there in Jericho, there would be no hope. And she knew that. And so she had to find a way to attach herself to hope. And this is what she did. This is the story. I'm going to pick up in verse 8 here. Before the spies lay down for the night, she went up to the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 kings of the Amorites, east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. This is Joshua 2, verse 11. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you. The Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. See, you see what she's saying here? She's realizing her need for hope. Because where God is, there's hope. Thank you, Cameron. Verse 14. Our lives for your lives, the men assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land. So she let them down by a rope through the window. For the house she lived in was part of the city wall. She said to them, go to the hills so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourselves there 3 days until they return, and then go on your way. Now the man had said to her, this oath you made us swear will not be binding on us unless, when we enter the land, you have tied a scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and unless you have brought your father and mother, your brothers, and all your family into your house. If any of them go outside your house into the street, their blood will be on their own heads. We will not be responsible. As for those who are in your house with you, their blood will be on our head if a hand is laid on them. But if you tell what we are doing, we will be released from the oath you made us swear. Agreed, she replied. Let it be as you say. She sent them away, and they departed, and she tied the scarlet cord in the window. All right. So this is a story of hope. So here we have first the Israelites. They had been waiting for 40 years in the wilderness to possess this land that God has promised them. And now that the time has finally come. It's finally come for them to possess this land that God has promised. Their hope is being realized. And again, on the other hand, Rahab, she knows that it's over for Jericho. And if she remains there, her life is done. Death is assured if she remains there. So she has to figure out a way how to attach herself to God and to this hope. And this is what they tell her to do. They tell her to attach a scarlet cord to the window. And that would be the sign. That would be the sure sign for her hope to have. What I find fascinating about this is that in Hebrew, the word for cord is actually the word tikva. It's the word for hope. And so when you read it in Hebrew, it says, unless we enter the land, you have tied this scarlet hope, or this scarlet tikva in the window through which you let us down. So this scarlet cord, it was a sign of hope for her to have life. And it's interesting because there's another Hebrew word for cord or rope, but that word is not used here. It's the word for hope that's used here. Why is that? Why does that use the word for hope and not the word for cord or rope? One scholar says that it's because hope is a cord attached to something bigger in the future. It's a symbol that she's attaching her hope to the God of Israel, the God who made the heavens and the earth. She's already proclaimed that. She's already confessed that. She's attaching herself to something bigger in the future. Again, where God is, there's hope. There's life where God is. But also, when you pull a cord tight, you produce a state of tension until there's release. And that's kavah. That's the feeling of tension and expectation while you are waiting for something to happen. That tension. And that's what she does. She attaches herself to the God of Israel. She has a better future, but she also has life. We all need hope. We all need to attach ourselves to God. We need to tie our scarlet cord around the windows of our hearts, and there will be life. We need to help other people attach their hearts to God as well. Because again, where God is, there is hope. She put her hope in God, and she was granted life. And isn't it beautiful to see that Rahab, this woman who had no hope of life, assured death, she found a way to be grafted into the family of Jesus. Matthew 1, she's right there. Her name is there in the family of God. Isn't that good to know? This morning, as we close, we all need hope. This morning, if you are feeling hopeless, if you're dealing with difficulty, as many of us are, whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever it is, I'm asking you to attach yourself to God. I'm asking you to tie that scarlet cord around your heart and give it to God, because there is hope and there is life. This morning, if we can do anything for you here today, I ask that you come as we stand and as we sing.